verses 19 and 20. He was talking about going into all the world and preaching the gospel. Well, I had already loved Jesus and wanted to serve him with my life. When he said this, I thought, wow, I just really want to go. I want to go. I want to be a missionary. So from that moment on, I purposed in my heart that was something that I wanted to do. And as I began reading about missionaries that had gone before me, before any other missionary these days, like Amy Carmichael, who went to India and saved the little girls from being forced temple prostitutes, or Elizabeth Elliot, who many of you may know, who was the wife to a missionary martyr, and she returned to the very tribe that savagely killed her husband just to preach the gospel to them, to share the gospel with them. And as I read the examples of these people, I thought, wow, I just want to be like this. I want to blaze the trail and go and share the gospel somewhere. Because I love Jesus and I wanted to share Jesus with other people. They were such a great example in my life as I read about these missionaries. I wanted to do this and I wanted to go and I wanted to share the gospel. So I finished high school, started college, and in all that I met Travis at the master's. We were both like-minded. We wanted to go into missions. So we got married within that year, which is a fun story in itself, full of drama, but we won't get into that. We went through the training at TMM. By the end of the year, we were ready. We were excited. We were young. We were ready to go on the mission field, blaze that trail. But God had different plans for us. We had to wait 4 years. We lived in Georgia, visited different churches, and Travis had his own business, and he was working hard, saving money for us to go. And it was a real trying time for us because we wanted to go. And we had little Sarah and Summer at that time, so our family was growing. But in May of 2006, we were ready to go. We packed our crates, we packed our foot lockers, we put on our backpacks. When we got on the plane, we were excited, we were young, we were ready for this adventure called missions. All the sights and the smells of Kenya were new and different, and we were ready. Now, I'd like to tell you that our first night in Kenya, I slept with such peace, trusting in God's sovereign plan for us in Kenya. But that's not the truth. I cried my eyeballs out, wondering, what in the world have I gotten myself into? I'm sleeping in a shipping container with the door bolted shut. I'm scared to death to go outside and go to the bathroom. Not sure what's lurking out there. It didn't seem very romantic like the books I read. But I learned very early to rely on God's grace and mercy and to cry out to Him. Lamentations chapter 3 became my prayer. And I would like to read that to you guys. Lamentations 3:22 and 23 says, "It is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, because His compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness." I really learned to lean on God's grace and faithfulness, and this brought me such comfort. Our first trip out to the Masai Mara, which was our future mission station, was a long, dusty drive. But it was so exciting because we were out in the bush and we saw animals like giraffes and zebras and possibly even an elephant. My little girls were so excited, and it just seemed like an awesome adventure. Up until the point where it got dark. All of a sudden, I realized there's no street lights. There's no city lights. I reached down to make sure my mini mag was still there because I was kind of scared of the dark. What's out there in the bush, right? As we got further and further, slipping and sliding in the mud, I began to think that I was getting further and further away from a doctor for my girls. Or what if some tragedy happens? How are we going to get medical help? But once again, I'm reminded to rely on God's grace and to lean on His strength and sovereign control in my life. He called us to be missionaries in Kenya, and He won't leave us, like it says in Matthew 28, where it says, "Lo, and I will be with you to the end." So Travis and I went, and we knew that God would be with us. Life on the mission field has changed day from day. It's always an adventure. It's always about trusting God for our needs. It's always about trusting God for our safety and trusting God for opportunities to share the gospel. Always trusting and keeping my eyes on Jesus. Because the moment I'm not focused on Christ, I'm sure to sink like Peter did. Our first year, we lived in North Kenya in Lwangolani, which is more in the desert. I felt like my first year in Kenya was like living upside down. I didn't know what was up and what was down. Everything was so new. I had learned to shop for 3 to 4 months and pack up my pantry. When we got to our little tiny house in Lwangolani, and I get all my stuff situated, I'm thinking, what am I supposed to cook for my family? I have all the supplies, and now I don't know what to do. My biscuits turned out like hockey pucks, and my cinnamon rolls had to be chiseled out, kind of like a rock from a quarry. It took some time, but I learned how to do a little better. All the washing was by hand. I didn't have a wash machine at the time. And with little kids and a hardworking husband, you can imagine it was a lot of hand washing day by day, which I didn't mind so much because it was 120 degrees, so to have your hands in cold water was not bad. We spent our time working on Swahili, which again was a hard environment to learn Swahili, but we forged our way through it. After our time in Lwangolani, we moved to Masai Mara, which is where we are now, our permanent mission station. At first, we lived in a 12 by 14 tin shack that was already there. Travis worked hard to make this our little home, even put lights outside for me to go around to back to the outhouse. Because he knew I'd be up and down a lot since I was pregnant with Savannah. I worked hard on learning Swahili, and at that point I had a ringer washer, so that changed life a little bit. The washer was getting easier. And I worked on getting to know the local people and what they were all about. As we lived there, Travis worked hard at building a shop, and when the shop was done, we moved in, which was a very exciting day for us, because now we had stone walls instead of tin walls, and we didn't have to be scared about leopards coming in our house at night. I like to call these years my baby years, because I had 4 girls about the age of 7 and under. A lot of work, a lot of dishes, a lot of laundry, and not enough sleep. We had a lot of sicknesses around that time, and that was a real challenging time for us. We had some issues with our water because baboons were getting in our tanks, and we were getting sick, and we didn't realize that was the issue. But I'll tell you what, when your kids are sick and you're in a foreign country, you don't know if they're going to die of malaria or typhoid, you really learn how to trust in Jesus. You pray Scripture, and you trust that God's grace is sufficient, like it says in 2 Corinthians 12:9. That God's grace is sufficient in my weakness. When Savannah was 3 years old, she came running into the kitchen, bleeding just everywhere from her mouth. We didn't know what the situation was. I called out for Travis, who came. We put her up on the counter, and we're trying to find out why she's bleeding. He opens her mouth, and she has a hole in the back of her throat. She's just pumping blood out the back of her throat. Moments like that, as a mom, as a human, I was ready to pass out. But I tell you, God's grace is always there. He saw us through that. And within 5 minutes, the blood stopped, and her mouth did heal. To this day, we're not exactly sure what she stabbed in the back of her throat as a little 3-year-old, but we're thankful that God did save her life. Now, we live in a stone house that Travis has built. I have paint on the walls. For you ladies, you know that's pretty nice, exciting to have. I feel a little more settled day to day. My girls are getting older and very helpful, able to help with the wash and the dishes, and they're a big part of the ministry. I'm more confident in Swahili and able to teach more. I help teach ladies Bible study and girls Bible study, and also kids Sunday school. I'm learning to balance the details of my days. Some details I can see coming, like the meals I need to prepare. I make everything from scratch, so I know that I have to plan my day accordingly. I homeschool the girls, so I get all that organized. I know the cleaning is ahead, and I also know that I'll be teaching or studying for a Bible study. There's many things I don't know that might happen in a day, like a sick person coming to the gate that needs help, or just someone in general coming to visit. I can't predict that. So I'd like to give you what a normal day looks like. I like to call it organized chaos. So I wake up before the sun, have a little coffee and a little Bible time, and I get breakfast ready and wake up the kiddos. Then we eat breakfast together. Travis heads out to work, which is right now building the school. We get school started. We see if Travis needs any help bringing any tools or anything. I get the laundry started, and oh, someone's at the door. Normally someone maybe coming to talk or they need something. So it kind of pulls me away from what's going on in the house so I can help them. And I try to keep the kids on track with school because they're always ever distracted. Then I have to prep for lunch, get that started, and oh, someone's at the door again. This time they need a ride to the clinic. Always happens right before lunch. Someone needs a ride to the clinic. So I pull in the girls and they help me with lunch, and I usually get to take that person to the clinic. My girls are a big help. We eat lunch around 1 o'clock, and lunch is the big meal for us. So that's like eating a big dinner. And after lunch, we kind of zonk out for a few minutes to just rest up. And then I try to get things ready for maybe Bible study that day. We have ladies Bible study on Tuesdays that I teach. And then maybe prepping some work for Sunday school for Sunday. And then I'll either go to Bible study, or some afternoons I like to go visit ladies that have had babies, or if I've heard someone is sick, I like to go down to the huts and visit with folks. Always cleaning to do in the afternoon. And then we prep for dinner, which is normally bread or popcorn or something simple. And then my favorite time of the day is when we get to sit out on the patio in the evening and watch the beautiful red sunset. That African sun is amazing. And have a little family time together. Now it never fails that disaster strikes when Travis has gone to Nairobi. And sometimes he goes to Nairobi without us, and that's about a 6-hour drive. So he's normally gone a couple days getting some work done. Either me or one of the girls will be sick. One time he was gone and there was rioting in the neighboring village and we were forced to stay in the house. Sometimes there's local emergencies which requires Travis to help and he's not there, so I have to figure out how to help. One time there was a need to evacuate the station because of a threat. Travis was in Nairobi. One night it's very late and dark and a truck pulls up to our gate, which is a very scary thing when you're alone in the bush. And of course the solar went out while Travis was gone. This never happens. It went out in the middle of the night. We didn't have lights. Just some of the things that happened while Travis was gone. So before I finish, I would like to just give you a quick list of some experiences that I've had in Kenya. I've hiked to Sandy Mountain, drank many warm cokes in a hot, smoky huts, trying not to burn. Held countless new babies, praying God would sustain their lives since they are so tiny. Watched as a friend of mine put her dead baby in a shallow grave. Held a friend so she wouldn't hurt herself as she wept for the loss of her son to cancer. Watched a woman carry her deathly ill 10-year-old daughter on her back for miles to plead for help. I've chased giraffes by four-wheeler and by foot. The giraffes always win. I've watched God turn darkness to light as he calls sinners to himself. I sat with a lady under a tree in the mud and manure who told me she is ready to be saved. I've enjoyed beautiful four-wheeler rides with my husband and children. I've given birth twice in a third-world country. Stood speechless as an older lady spit on my newborn Savannah, giving her a blessing. I wondered if we would survive the violence during the 2007 elections. The same day that Summer, at 3 years old, went in for eye surgery, we were robbed and lost a lot of money. It was a very difficult time. I wondered if I would ever recover from Savannah being stuck in the road and stay. Sit on the front porch watching amazing African sunsets. Sent my husband off in a taxi at night alone to go to the ER. That was very difficult. And I have dealt with endless bats and huge rats. I've had many weak moments, but in this, that's when God's grace has been ever sweeter. Any questions?
Barb, what about wild animals? Do you have like ants or